Yo, what's going on, guys? And today I wanted to talk about an interesting report that I saw that it hasn't been talked enough, but according to Spurs reporter, San Antonio has made Jeremy Sohan's name available in trade talks for the right price. They've inquired about Jimmy Butler, Zach LaVine, and Brandon Ingram in an attempt to accelerate their timeline, with Victor Wembanyama obviously already being an all-star and you know, on his way to being an all NBA player, probably defensive player of the year this year. So with that being said, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. I think that also the dark horse team should be the Hornets because they have like Josh Green and Cody Martin and Vasilija Mizic, who I think are all guys that would interest a team like the Spurs if they can't get a big fish. Now, I think if I were personally out of the three guys, Butler, LaVine, and I guess the third guy being right here, they were saying Butler, LaVine, and Ingram, I would not go for Ingram. I think LaVine, if you want a bona fide scorer, I think he could really be the dark horse, because you would imagine Jeremy Sohan packaged with like Zach Collins. And maybe I kind of like Harrison Barnes, and Harrison Barnes would get the money down. I just think there's value in Jeremy Sohan. One of the things with Jeremy Sohan is that he still needs to be developed, and I don't know if that matches the timeline that they're on. Plus, his defensive skill sets, yes, they're nice, but because you have Victor Wembanyama, they're not as needed, if that makes sense. Like, he's a great point of attack defender. Like, that's why I thought a team like Charlotte would really like him, because of how they looked with Grant Williams, and then Grant Williams gets hurt. So my assumption there is you'd have to assume that they would be looking at that. Would the Spurs be a landing spot for Jimmy? Yeah, Jimmy's a Texas native. Obviously, that's not the team that he listed, but I think that's a culture that he would fit into. And I wouldn't rule the San Antonio Spurs to be the ones to get out there, but I think there is the thoughts that, you know, I think the Jeremy Sohan's a guy that needs to be kind of coddled. He needs to be nurtured. And I think in the current situation, they want to find out who are the guys right now. And it looks that another report is that Julian Champagnie is somebody who's been shopped by Bleacher Report's Greg Swartz. I think we know for a fact Devin Vassell is a lock. He's a lock. When I look at the Spurs stats, I think we can see a picture being painted of who is important this season in terms of the team's rotation and everything. Like I said, Devin Vassell's great. I think Keldon Johnson, he's kind of their sixth man and like the adult in the room. I think Castle's great. Harrison Barnes' shooting, in my opinion, is underrated. Chris Paul's another guy that I think is underrated. But having a dead eye in Harrison Barnes is something I think they like. But Zach Collins barely plays anymore. So my assumption is Branham and Zach Collins. You can throw maybe like a Charles Bassey in there with, as I said, Jeremy Sohan, are the guys that they're probably shopping. I think out of the ones they said, Butler and LaVine would be the big ones, but I'd rather try to find some bargains. Like, what if you can get like a Matisse Thybulle and a Robert Williams? Yeah, Robert Williams is injury prone, but like you get Matisse Thybulle, maybe you try even to get a guy, somebody else off of that team too, where you're just looking for value out of what can be put together. And I think that's like the biggest thing, is like understanding that you can find yourself some pretty solid pairings if you had to, instead of going all in on a super, or a star, an all-star, because I don't think they're going to get Devin Booker. I think the only other guy that who could one guy that I think that they should look into, if they could get Santi Aldama, I would love Santi Aldama on this team. I think Victor Wembanyama with Santi Aldama would be it would be a cheat code of a front court. Wemby at center, Santi at power forward, and then you fill in the rest of the roster with vets. That's a team, to say the least, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I think all this, and I don't even think it's like, I think there's a less than 50% chance that Jeremy Sochan gets traded. I think it's more as a result that they're gonna go ahead and look for deals, and if they find a deal that works for them, then they're gonna go ahead and do what they think will be best for their franchise. As I think, like, right now, the whole situation with everything is all gonna come down to if they're going to be able to maximize this season or next season, because the NBA is right now wide open, like so wide open that I think anybody who's watching basketball would understand that the current iteration of the league is going to be for anybody who's trying to go all in. So if you feel like you have a team that can take that next step, I would take that next step. And I think San Antonio is more than likely thinking like that. So that's where I want to hear your guys' opinions. What are you guys expecting this season and why? I'm definitely curious to hear what's the overall impact and thoughts that you're going to have about this season. If they do keep or don't keep Jeremy Sochan, and if they should be trying to prioritize a trade like a Butler or a LaVine, or should they be looking at one of these rebuilding teams where maybe they can get some guys who are on cheap second-year contracts. Another one is, if it's not Zach LaVine, a Patrick Williams. But the whole thing, I think they want a bona fide scorer, which is something that I think they're looking for. Which is why I brought up the whole thing of scalability. If you can find a guy who you feel like is going to be able to scale up their production, then I would look at guys like a Santi Aldama, as I said earlier. I'm trying to think of somebody. I mean, if you can try, I just don't like the idea of Julius Randle on this team. But I was trying to think of maybe one of the trades that recently happened that didn't work. Like, I wouldn't go for Bradley Beal, but like, those are ideas that you could look into. I mean, to each their own. But yeah, let me hear your thoughts about this Jeremy Sochan news, and if you guys would even do anything about it or not. That's basically going to be it from me. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Peace out.